Trouble, one of the people on the Troublemaker team of card deck designers, and here with Ross, who is our main point of contact and miracle worker at Community Printers, which has made this whole deck come to life. And just want to ask Ross if you can talk with us a little bit about how this deck was printed, what the
Sure,
experience has been like of creating it.
sure. Well, you guys contacted us and explained that you were trying to put a game together, and we have a fair amount of experience now publishing games for progressive organizations. And so after talking to you, we made some recommendations on style of box and ideal size for the instruction sheet and just best practices that we could think of to come up with the game in a timely fashion and in a cost-effective fashion. Um, from our perspective, the game is made up of several different components. It's got the deck. I think it holds the record for the most number of cards in a deck that we've ever printed. I'm actually not sure how many are in it. You probably know off the top of your head better than I do. And they're on,
132.
yeah, and they're on a substantial paperboard, and they're all printed 4-color, 2-side. And then after printing them and collating them, we corner rounded them just to help keep the edges from getting dog-eared. And then one of our recommendations was to come up with an instruction guide that would be exactly the same size as the card when you slipped it in, so it would be easy to carry it. And then everything goes into this little box. And because the game is so substantial in terms of weight, we recommended using this particular paper that's made from the same paper that your 6-pack of beer would be made out of, i.e. a strong paper that can carry a lot of weight. And we assembled it and then shipped it to places around the world.
You all at Community Printers are kind of an unusual company. So if you could tell us a little bit about the values that drive the company.
Sure. Well, what makes us unusual is a couple of things. One is that we're a union shop. The other is that we're a 35-member worker co-op. Everybody who works at Community Printers is on the board of directors of Community Printers Incorporated and is involved in all of the major decisions having to do with what our wage structure looks like, when we want to buy a new printing press, when we're going to hire a new member. And that social experiment has been successful. We've been around since 1977, and we've grown to be the largest commercial printer on the Central Coast of California. And so it speaks well to how democracy in the workplace can actually have a very positive, successful role in our economy. In this particular case, the deck is made from paper that has recycled content, and it's also FSC certified, meaning that we know that the fiber from the deck has come from sustainable sources. We have different kinds of printing processes. We have digital processes and offset processes. In this particular case, the deck was printed digitally, and we use a ultra low temperature fusing toner to reduce the amount of energy consumption in the print process. And it also makes for a really tough rub resistant sort of finish on the sheet. A lot of times doing the right thing and doing the best thing from a quality standpoint can be one and the same. I think we've been taught to believe that you sometimes have to sacrifice quality for the sake of sustainability. The paper that we use, a lot of people, when they want to make a box real tough, what they do is they put a film lamination over it. As soon as you put a film lamination over paper, you make it so it can never be recycled because it's a combination of two materials. So instead, what we chose to do was use a paper that's naturally really, really tough and can still be recycled at end of life. Our history is kind of interesting in that we started as a lefty, hole-in-the-wall movement shop in the 70s and grew to do lots and lots of publications, particularly books. And then as people started to shift their reading to electronic kind of devices, we started to see that if we were exclusively dependent upon doing publications, that we were going to have a hard time keeping 35 people and their families employed. So we started to do other kinds of printing. And being on the central coast of California, there's lots of food production. And so we started doing food packaging. And once we started to develop ourselves as a significant packaging operation on the Central Coast, then when game designers reached out to us, we had an interesting and unique set of skills between the publishing work on one hand and the packaging work on the other, where normally you don't find those two functions happening under one roof. So in the last couple of years, we've been doing lots and lots of game production, and it tends to be for progressive organizations because of what our roots are.
Wow, it's very cool. You can get your apples to apples and your literal oranges all under
Yeah.
one. Like,
we get a fair number of phone calls from people who say they want to make a game. I think our name has gotten out there as sort of the people to talk to when you're planning a progressive game. And games are a lot of work in the planning stages. I mean, sometimes we'll have conversations that extend for a year before we actually produce the game, because people are maybe planning a Kickstarter campaign, or they're working on their budget, or they're working on their grant or something like that. And it's hard because we don't charge anything for making prototypes or for doing planning, to put that much effort in if something isn't real or genuine. And within a matter of minutes, I could tell you guys were real. You had a very, very clear idea of what you were doing. I think it may set a record for games that go from estimate into production. I think it was like 4 days or 5 days or something. I mean, that's not usually how it happens. I'm sure there's some story there that you had a very, very clear idea of what you wanted, and it was just the details around the packaging of it that needed to get sorted out.
it's true. You know, I think in part that's due to the fact that we had such a successful crowdfunder with over 300 people donating and purchasing, pre-purchasing or pre-ordering card decks. So we felt the pressure to get these decks into the hands of the people who supported this vision. And then we also had help from so many people who play tested the beta version of the game.
A key element to a good game is that it's gone through lots of testing and gotten lots of feedback and incorporated that feedback into the production.
Yeah. It's a very exciting thing to be part of a project where literally the over 100 cards in this card deck have been written by over 100 different activists from all over the world. And then it's been play tested by so many people. And so it's a really collaborative, movement-based effort.
There is just no way that we could have envisioned, as the motley crew that we were in the 70s, that we could grow to have value to progressive organizations around the United States. And yet we're fielding calls and queries nowadays literally from all over the country, from really exciting groups that are doing amazing things, whether they're games or their books or their signage for national events, and we get to be a part of it. And so it's really exciting for us. For some of us, it's really important at the end of each day to have something to show for our day's work. So I worked as an organizer for a while in the 80s, trying to see what was life outside of printing. And while I enjoyed the organizing work, in the end, I came back to the shop because I get so much personal satisfaction from making something and have something like this to go home and show my wife, or to feel really proud of. So I think it's unfortunate that manufacturing has taken such a downturn in the United States, because I don't think I'm unusual. I think there are many, many people that are like me, that their sense of self-worth comes from what they help to create. In my case, it's print, but for somebody else, it might be building furniture, building a house, or um, and I see that as integral to progressive social change, is to find ways that we can all find meaning and purpose in our life.
Mm-hmm. So the joke is, we say everything you need to create the revolution is inside this box. Help you think outside the box. Yeah.
A little trouble.